So were you like me this week, where you looked at the schedule and you're like, all right, I guess it's going to be another week of baseball, and then you saw there were no games? You know, what the hell's going on? You go to tomorrow, you say, oh my God, there are no games, and then you find out, oh, it's the All-Star break. I had zero clue there was an All-Star break. When I signed off on our show on Thursday, I was like, I'll see you on Monday for another round of I Hate Baseball, and there was nothing. But what do you expect me to do? There are 6,000 games throughout the course of an MLB season. You think I know when the All-Star break is? I named the show I Hate Baseball for a reason, not because I know the schedule of every team throughout the course of every week. I know nothing, Jon Snow, but I do know that this week has now provided me the extra time to bring some other things to your attention. I thought I would go back to the futures.
What's wrong, McFly? Chicken?
As in my NFL futures bet. I got a good look in there. I went flipping through the pages, and I saw a couple things that I thought were worth bringing to your attention. These were bets that I put in. These are bets that I shared on the Patreon, and now I think it's time to share with you while we have this time during this down week. And what are you guys watching? What are you watching? Are you still watching House of the Dragon after Game of Thrones stuck it to you 5 years ago? Literally bent you over, stuck it to you, and said, don't worry, they're the kind of person, and we'll start a new show. They'll come right back, because they have no pride. They have no sense of honor.
Do you have a shred of honor?
The honor that Game of Thrones calls for has been exhibited by none of you House of the Dragon watchers. So, for you honorable folks, here is an NFL futures video. I'm going to start with something kind of weird. This is not weird when you think of futures. You think of, oh, who's going to lead in rushing touchdowns? Who's going to have yards over this? No, I found a weird one, and this one is on Caesars Sportsbook. I mean, maybe it's on some other sportsbook. Help each other in the comments and let everyone know what other sportsbook it's on. It's head-to-head wins matchup. So one team versus another, they just draw these arbitrary matchups and show you what the spread is. And the one that I'm going to go with big time is the Kansas City Chiefs -1 wins over the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, this is a two-pronged reasoning as to why I love this bet. Let's start with the Chiefs side. You're talking about the Super Bowl champions. Who's the last Super Bowl champion that returned the quarterback and returned the majority of the team that just completely didn't even make the playoffs, weren't good at all? You're talking about like a dynasty-level team in the Chiefs who just had the worst year you'll pretty much ever see from a Patrick Mahomes team. Do you guys remember last year? The opening night loss to the Lions, who in retrospect, you could say the Lions were good, but the opening night loss to the Lions, no wide receivers who would ever catch anything. Valdez-Scantling dropping that pass at the end of that Monday Night Football, which lost them that game. Just loss after loss on these awful receivers who couldn't catch anything. They had to nickel and dime their way to a bunch of wins, yet they still did it. The worst season you could ever kind of hope for the Chiefs with that squad, and Mahomes behind center, 11 wins. They had 11 wins last year in an awful year with Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Your dad could have been out there, and it probably would have been the same. Well, now this year, they bring in Hollywood Brown. They draft a receiver in the first round. This will probably open up more opportunities for Travis Kelce. By the end of last year, Rashee Rice finally, he got things going. Probably will be suspended for the first couple of games. That really doesn't trouble me. But the Chiefs, I think, are primed for a very good year. They're going to have 2 games against the Broncos, 2 games against the Raiders in that division. Chargers ain't going to be easy wins, and I'll get to that in just a second. How do you like that tease? What, am I going to read a promo for Nestle Crunch right now? Absolutely not. I'm going to talk about the other side of that bet, which is the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia free-falling Eagles. A couple years ago, I think it was 2 seasons ago when I was talking about the futures. I took the under on the win totals for the Arizona Cardinals. Kind of like, do you guys see how they ended the year? I think it was when they made the playoffs, but looked awful in the final third and then got absolutely stomped in that opening round matchup. I'm like, that's not a good way to end the year. That is trending in the wrong direction. And then they had a brutal year, cleared the under on that win total easily. I don't see how things are all that different for the Philadelphia Eagles. They were in free fall last year. You remember they were scamming those undefeated wins? Like they found a way to beat the Bills even though they got outplayed. And then eventually they got stomped, and then the stompings kept coming. And that culminated in a playoff loss against Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield stomped out these Philadelphia Eagles. And if you remember, there's a lot of drama, A.J. Brown drama, people calling each other out on the sidelines. And then there was the coach barking with fans. Jalen Hurts had to calm the coach down. And then they lost their center, their longtime center, Jason Kelsey. He's no longer there. And that offensive line has been top 5 for how many years now? You remember the huge deal they made when Lane Johnson was taken out with injury. Well, now they've permanently lost one of those members. They'll probably still have a good offensive line, but they had that offensive line last year, and they still ran into the troubles. So when you're just giving me a -1 with the Chiefs, who ascended as the year went on, I mean, you saw them in the playoffs, how good they looked, and then the Eagles, who were descending, -1, weird bet, but it is my favorite. Now, I mentioned the Chargers not being easy wins in that division. That's because they're bringing in Harbaugh. That Harbaugh effect, it's real. Like, some people believe the Mandela effect is absolutely real. Like, I remember I used to buy Fruit Loops. It wasn't spelled L-O-O. It was the Berenstein Bears. The Harbaugh effect. The Harbaugh effect is real. You look what he did with the Niners. Took them from a bad team to winning the division instantly. One of the best teams in the league, going, Super Bowl, NFC Championship. Goes to Michigan. I mean, they don't win right away, but top of the conference every single year. They're in that college playoff, and it culminates with a big win towards the end. This guy just changes organizations. And I know you're probably thinking, hey, but they lost all those skill position players. I'll get to that in just a second, because we're going to find a way to make money on that as well. But the Harbaugh effect is real, and because the Chiefs are in their division, it's going to be a tall order asking them to win the division. But I do think they're going to make the playoffs, which means they're going to get one of those wild card positions. And they made the playoffs 2 years ago with the worst coach known to man. They fired their coach, which ultimately was the right move long term. Should have made it a year before. I think they're getting back into the playoffs, and who knows how good they'll be. They might even challenge the Chiefs for the division. That's how scared I would be of Harbaugh. But I like them making the playoffs, grabbing a wild card spot in the AFC where there are spots open, there are spots available. Go look at the playoffs last year. Them getting in is like +2. It was between +250, +280. And for me, that's enough, because I think they're absolutely getting in there, and I do have faith in Justin Herbert. You look how Harbaugh's worked with other quarterbacks in the past. Got the most out of Alex Smith, got the most out of Kaepernick, and he doesn't have to do a lot to get the most out of Justin Herbert. Now, you talk about those skill position players that they've lost on the Chargers. They lost Keenan Allen and his 115 catches that he'd normally have. They lost the deep threat in Mike Williams. And they lost all those checkdowns with Austin Ekeler. The guy would have 10 catch games every once in a while. What does that mean? That's a hell of a lot of targets to go around. Are they going to go to Quentin Johnston, old Butterfingers? I don't think so. I think a ton of them are going to somebody that the quarterback trusts. If you had my love, you all my trust. No, I think he's going to throw to me, as in Josh Palmer. You go look at Josh Palmer's stats, especially when some of those other players were out. Even Ekeler was in there and Keenan Allen was in there. He was still putting up pretty good stats. Herbert trusts Josh Palmer. And if you look at his game log toward the end of the year when he was thrust into a bigger role, he's easily topping his total. I would take him for over 800, to be honest. If I was asked to set this up, what would you set his line at? Who's he competing with? Gerald Everett isn't even there. I think this is a slam dunk pick. Give me the over on Josh Palmer receiving yards. And I know, everybody knows, I was even told that the word over is clicked 78% of the time. 78% of all bets are overs, which usually means the smart thing to do is take unders. But before we go there, since 78% of you love clicking the word over, I will give you one more over that I like. And this is an over that we said throughout the playoffs. Remember we were watching those Bill games? Gabe Davis got injured. So I said, let's take the second most dynamic player in the Bills offense to go over on his receiving total for the game. And not only that, we're going to take the alt on his receiving total as well. And we hit that with regularity once Gabe Davis was out of the lineup. And that's Dalton Kincaid. Not only is Gabe Davis gone, but Stephon Diggs is gone as well. So you're looking at a ragtag of veterans who are coming in, like Curtis Samuel. They're still going to have Khalil Shakir in the slot. They obviously drafted a wide receiver. But you're talking about a rookie tight end. And if you look at the history of the NFL, it's not easy to be successful as far as statistically for rookie tight ends. So the fact that he did that well in his rookie year, and then you remove the top 2 dynamic targets, I think this is another slam dunk pick, barring injury. But they say injury is baked into the line. But how much is it? I want to know the injury baked percentage. And if there is anyone who says, but did you see his numbers when they went back to the 2 tight end sets? Yes, but that's with Diggs and Davis. Without Diggs and Davis, it's a whole hell of a lot different with Curtis Samuel and Khalil Shakir. I can assure you that. You're going to be looking for your biggest guy down the seam, Dalton Kincaid, which we saw multiple times when he was called upon last year. Second year, tight ends usually see a jump. Loving the over on Dalton Kincaid. And that's it. You love the word over? Those are the overs. Because now, as I've said in hockey, and as Josh has even informed me in baseball, there are many roads to an under. It was that aforementioned injury I just talked about. You can just lose straight up. It's not the yellow brick road here. You don't just need that one road. That's what overs are. There's one road. It works. But to unders, there's many ways we can weasel. Guy starts on PUP like the Hawkinson bet, or all sorts of other things that can happen. Maybe a suspension. Maybe somebody gets suspended halfway through the year. But obviously injury is one of the biggest ones, and this guy I'm about to talk about, we've heard his name for years. Why? Because he was a member of the Kyle Shanahan offense, and if somebody's a member of that Shanahan offense, especially a running back, you know you've heard me take a couple props on him. Everybody from Eli Mitchell to Jeff Wilson to Raheem Mostert. This is a guy in his 30s who just had the best year of his career, unbelievably. And while I'm not shocked that if given the opportunity and he can stay healthy, which is something that he's never done throughout the course of his career, he'd be able to put up numbers like that. But another year in this offense, and as you saw throughout the final third of the season, the ascension of Devon Achane and Mostert's high probability of getting injured in his 30s once again. And I do want to remind you guys, in his first year in Miami, they traded for Jeff Wilson halfway through the year. And Jeff Wilson was the primary ball carrier, and Mostert came in like a change of pace role. So last year, if Wilson didn't get injured before the year started, he started on PUP, then there's no full workload going to Raheem Mostert. And then he doesn't blow up like that. Now, obviously, having a year like that has earned him a certain share. But as you saw throughout, the final third of the season, when those games got a little wiggly, they went to Achane because of how dynamic he is. So Achane's ascension combined with a more of a committee approach, which they don't mind doing in that San Fran style that they run over there with the Dolphins. I'm going to go with 2 unders here. Yes, the under on 710 rushing yards. But to be honest, I love the touchdown under. And I know it sounds ridiculous. He had an absurdly productive year. This is a guy who got injured for the year on carry 3 with the Niners in his 30s, and he got banged up as the year went on. I would be shocked if he plays more than half the season. And I think that's a great bet. The under on touchdowns and rushing yards for Raheem Mostert. All right, on 3, we're going to think of the guy with the worst hamstring in the NFL. All right, let's do it. On 3, even if you're home, just say it out loud. Who knows? There might be a future device where I'll be able to retroactively see if you got it right. You ready? On 3, just want to remind you, say the person you know in the NFL with the worst hamstring of all of them. The Family Feud hamstring rankings. And Julio Jones doesn't count because he's not on a team and they're not even hamstrings. They're dead meat at this point. All right, you ready? 1, 2, under 700 and something yards for Christian Watson. This guy has the worst hamstring known to man, and it's a shame because he's really young. Can you imagine that hamstring in 15 years from now? Christian Watson's been injured the first 2 years of his career. He comes back, he re-aggravates it all the time. Anytime you can get somebody with those soft tissue hamstring injuries, even when Julio Jones signed with the Tampa Bay, his total for the year was like 430. I might take the under. The guy was hamstrung all year. Pun intended. it's always important to include a pun intended every once in a while, because all you hear on the streets is the no pun intended. Well, pun fully intended, under 700 for Christian Watson. I don't trust that hamstring. And if you need another reason, they got so many young receivers they're juggling. They got Wicks, they got Reed, they got Dobbs, they got him. That's a lot of guys. And if you divvy that up, it's kind of a good scam in a way. That way, nobody ever has a huge year. I used to theorize that Belichick always used a rotation at running back, so nobody could ever put up big enough stats to merit a contract. That is another one I have. And then I shouldn't say this because I don't want to sound like a sucker. I don't want to sound like a sucker. The guy who watches the video and then goes to his fantasy football draft and then drafts someone way too early because he got snaked by a video. But I only tell you this because you're really gambling on week 1 availability. This is the opposite of the TJ Hawkinson pick, where he's opening on PUP. The whole bet was, is he opening on PUP and not going to play till week 6? If so, you're automatically winning. Nick Chubb. Did you guys see it? Did you see the squatting 540 pounds 8 months after the gruesome injury? You never really want to take somebody after torn ACLs, for the most part. That's like a 95%, maybe even more, 98%, unless you got the genetic freak exemption. Adrian Peterson was the genetic freak exemption. Huge year after a torn ACL. This squatting video leads me to believe we could be getting the genetic freak exemption. And I believe Nick Chubb, I'm not a doctor, and I believe half those fantasy doctors aren't as well. They just bought a code on Amazon and they put it on for their profile picture and say, fucking Dr. So-and-so, and oh yeah, I see a collateral. I see a lateral MCL spread. No. In my doctor's assessment, a guy squatting 540 in the middle of July, he should be on the field week 1. And if he's on the field week 1, this price is absolutely coming down. Do I need him to play on passing downs for this? No, I absolutely don't. All I need is for him to be that first and second down guy, and that is Nick Chubb, most touchdowns, plus 5,000. Now, if you think he's not going to hit, fine. That is absolutely fine. But if he plays week 1, what is that number going to? Plus 1,300, 1,400? Because if he's active, he is a massive threat to always be scoring touchdowns at the goal line, as he always has been. It was always Henry and then him. I don't know. Plus 5,000 seems like a decent sprinkle that might be worth your time. And those are some NFL futures. Back to the future. And I'll be back for some baseball on Monday, some I Hate Baseball. Going to be taping another comedy pod, talk about a couple treat things. I have some more news to tell you guys about. Riveting news. And I will do some more of these futures videos. Make sure that you guys do me a favor, as always, like and comment and do all the stuff that helps these videos grow. Also, I always forget to bring these up. Remember, you guys wanted all the promotions that Odd Shopper gave me, that if you guys haven't used these, like if you're not on Caesars and you want to take that best bet that I gave, the Chiefs -1 over the Philadelphia Eagles, first bet is risk-free up to 1,000. That link's down below. Check the other ones. There's Bet365, BetMGM, Fanduel, Draftkings. All the deals that Odd Shopper gave me to give you for new users are down below, and you could always access those to take advantage of those sign-up promotions. All right? So I will be back with you guys at an undisclosed time. Could be Monday, could be before that. How will you know? I don't know. Subscribe and click those notifications so you get a little ding. I don't screw you with spam videos. It's probably a video you're going to want to see if you enjoyed this channel. Hopefully you do. I'll see you next time.